Hey, sports fans and SJR community. Welcome to our second show. I'm your host, Liam Fahey, and today I'm joined by...
Jack Laux.
Danny Stigliano.
Andrew Riley.
We have a jam-packed show full of content. The NFL never fails to deliver excitement, and as the playoffs draw near, games become even more crucial. Make sure to catch our must-watch matchups this weekend. So, to start things off, guys, I think we should do a little bit of a weekend recap. So, I know that our first game this weekend, or our first night game this weekend, was a pretty significant one, right? It was the battle for the AFC South. Obviously, Jacksonville bottled it by the end of it, and we saw an emergence of a new probable future MVP in CJ Stroud. That game ended with a pretty rough moment with the drop pass from the running back. My question, though, is about the aforementioned CJ Stroud. Stiggs, is CJ Stroud the obvious offensive rookie of the year?
Well, I mean, you got another candidate in Puka Nakua, and he's actually put up really good numbers this season and even broke some records. So CJ Stroud has been really good this year, but Nakua's also been pretty significant. So it's going to be a tough decision when the vote comes down. But CJ Stroud looking pretty good, and he can even possibly be an MVP candidate.
You think so?
Yeah.
What do you think, Jack?
I mean, I definitely agree with him that CJ Stroud is going to be a future MVP candidate. I don't think for this year, especially with his absence in a couple of games, I think Puka has the edge where he played the full season, including the last game of the year. I mean, someone like Matt Stafford even sat out
Right.
for that 49ers game, but Sean McVay said, hey, let's start Puka. Let's get him those two records for receptions and passing yards.
And then pulled him. I love that reaction.
Yeah. So he is a valuable asset to that team. And I think the effort and the impact that Puka had on that team outweighs like any other player on that team. CJ obviously had the same case. He was also the most impactful player on their team. But I think Puka has shown everybody that he can, just because you're drafted in the 5th round doesn't mean that you're nobody and you can really show out.
Andrew,
Give me
Puka or
CJ.
CJ?
I'm gonna go CJ. When a team has the second overall pick in the draft and they're a playoff team the next year, that means they did something right.
Playoff team, a double-digit win playoff team.
I mean, the Texans, they traded for the 3rd overall pick, Hook Anderson. That entire
Who
team.
also might win. Sorry to interrupt, but who also might win Defensive Rookie of the Year? By
Yeah.
the way, just pointing it out. That kid's a monster. But
I mean,
continue.
Shout out to that Texans GM. But if you got a guy taking you to the playoffs after you were the second worst team in the league, I think that's got to be awarded, and that's why I think CJ's rookie of the year.
He's just unbelievable. And so I'm a guy. The big debate. I'm a Chargers fan. The big debate throughout our community for the last year or two, right, or at least since the big Jacksonville loss, is Herbert and Lawrence. Some people will say Lawrence is the better quarterback. Some people, and so it's a great joy to the Chargers fans community to knock down Trevor Lawrence, and the idea that Stroud knocked him out of the playoffs is, one, intimidating because now there's a new guy who can get debated with Herbert, but two, kind of nice. It's kind of a nice feeling of retribution. My vote's definitely CJ Stroud. I respect Puka for the things that he's done, but Stroud, I think, by my estimation, had the second greatest rookie quarterback season of all time, besides Justin Herbert. 37 touchdowns, 4,300 yards. But nonetheless, Stroud, absolutely unbelievable. I'm crying as a Bryce Young guy. Do you think that he'll ever come good, Jack?
I think Bryce's problem is that he likes to turn the ball over a little bit more than CJ does. CJ, when he's in the pocket, he surveys his options and he drops dimes. I mean, we all saw that 75-yard touchdown throw to Nico Collins on the first play of scrimmage, right out the gate against the Colts. So CJ's coming out here and he's throwing perfect passes. And Bryce, obviously, he has similar weapons, actually. I mean, they both have lackluster offenses, if we want to say that.
Definitely.
Nico Collins is somewhat of a threat. I will say he's grown into that wide receiver one type role.
But elevated by Stroud.
Definitely. Those passes are all that makes it for Nico. And also the time that he gets in the pocket. I mean, CJ, we see out of these top guys is that they're extending the passer time of surveying their options. And CJ does a great job of just stepping back and then sometimes going up and just finding the open receiver. I think Bryce, especially with the situation he has at O-line, he doesn't have a lot to work with.
Right.
I mean, when your wide receiver one is DJ Chark, you don't really have a lot of
Who
options.
had one of the worst botched touchdowns I've ever seen this
Yep.
weekend. I don't know if you guys saw it, but Bryce Young rolled out of the pocket and made a play over a Buccaneers defender, and it was like a 40-yard reception that DJ Chark flipped into the end zone and fumbled it as it was crossed. It was embarrassing. I want to transition actually from this. Originally, we were planning to go on to the game at the end of the week, but we're actually going to talk about who the because Stroud went so well. I want to talk about the Bears a little bit because the Bears had a chance at Stroud last year. They have a chance at another quarterback now. So, my question to you guys: we saw the Bears totally capitulate this weekend after having a 6-week straight solid run in which Fields looked very good, in which the defense was excellent. Montez Sweat was getting to the quarterback. The defense was playing out of their mind.
Pro Bowler Jalen Johnson too.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Now they've capitulated. And they did it against Green Bay again. Jack, has Fields bought enough goodwill in Chicago that they shouldn't go and draft Caleb Williams or Drake May?
Personally, I think everybody's putting the blame on Fields a lot, and frankly, I watched the game and it was the O-line that wasn't given enough time. He had DJ Moore. You can see him making these plays. They played the Falcons against probably the number one safety in the league, Jesse Bates, and DJ Moore was balling out. Justin Fields was balling out. And you face a team like Green Bay, who doesn't have a very well-known secondary. I mean, you have Jonathan Owens.
Jair Alexander.
They do have those players.
But the Joe Barry defense is laughable, Stiggs.
But
Getting torched.
you
Bryce
can't-
Young, who we just spoke about, threw 320 yards on the Joe Barry.
Exactly.
30 points. Still,
Right.
So
I think if the O-line buys him just a little bit more time and he has some receivers more than DJ Moore, because just like you said, Jair Alexander, he was locked down on DJ Moore. You need a second guy or a third guy to step into that role of, hey, I'm going to be downfield for Fields to chuck it up to me, instead of somebody who's just locked in coverage. I mean, Fields, he's doing everything he can, and I think he is their franchise quarterback.
We want Fields. Every Chicago Bears fan I know wants to keep Fields. A big impact. The Bears have a lot of money to spend this offseason, so they can rebuild that O-line, upgrade other positions. And I think with the first pick, I think they take Marvin Harrison. And if Fields doesn't work out, there's just more quarterbacks coming. I mean, it's never going to stop. You got to get a quarterback eventually. And if it's not Fields, then
They have been saying that for quite a long time, and it's yet to happen. It's all I would point out. They've been saying it for a century, and we've yet to see a 4,000-yard passer in Chicago.
The other option that they could do is that they could trade their first round number one pick for a lower pick to get a different player. I
Marvin
mean, on
Harrison.
reserve. Other teams are going to be like foaming at the mouth for Caleb Williams, so they're going to be wanting that number one pick. So if they're willing to give away that number one pick spot and just move down maybe just a little bit, they still get Marvin Harrison, but they also get some trade-off value where they get maybe another second rounder, and they could build around
Another-
Fields.
Stiggs, you taking Caleb Williams? You taking Justin Fields?
stay with Fields. You gotta
Stay
stay
with
with You gotta stay with Fields. I mean, he had this weekend's Green Bay, obviously a poor performance, but I feel like it's a bad game and it happens to the best of them. So I mean, I feel like he could perform better, and I agree with better O line, Marvin Harrison, trade down a couple picks and give it to a team who really needs that number one pick. Because right now, Bears do not need the number one pick. 7 and 10 you don't need a number one pick.
And they already
Obviously.
have one. They already have another one in the top 10. So you could just get another O lineman.
So I'm going Caleb. I'm going Caleb. Fields to me does not have an elite, legendary kind of ceiling. He's a very, very good ceiling. But I think they're working with Justin Fields rather than say in LA, Herbert is clearly a monster and everybody has to kind of like work up to Herbert, right? I don't think that that's what's going on in sorry, in Chicago. In Chicago, I feel that Fields at times is subpar. At the beginning of the season, before his injury, I don't know if you guys remember, but I wasn't sure if he could throw a ball. I wasn't sure if he could complete a pass. Last season, I mean, the running back stuff that Lamar used to get was actually a reality for Fields because that seemed to be all that he was doing right. He's come back. He's had a couple of good weeks, but to me, the thing that sealed it, and that I'm going Caleb, is that still, they can't beat the Packers. Still, they can't beat the Packers. They can't even come close. The whole team capitulated. It was ridiculous. I think you have to rebuild from here, and I think that Caleb Williams is a prospect that you cannot overlook, in my opinion. He's too Mahomey, Jack. He's too Mahomey. So the weekend ended in a pretty special way. We got to see the matchup that everybody was waiting for, which was the battle for the NFC. Or sorry, the AFC East. The AFC East. The AFC East ended with this game, which was obviously Miami versus Buffalo, which was a decider for the division. It ended up going to Buffalo, but I don't know what you saw, Andrew, but what I saw is Josh Allen almost lose the game 2 times by himself. My question to you first, Andrew, is who's a scarier playoff team? The Bills or the Dolphins?
Give me the Bills. I think the Dolphins, that defense without Bradley Chubb now, it's gonna be
Jalen Phillips
lackluster.
too.
It's gonna be lackluster, I think. And I think with all these teams, the Ravens, the Chiefs, these high power scoring offenses, if their offense can't keep it up, then they're gonna get toasted, I think. I think the Bills, they have a balance on both sides of the ball. And I think if Josh Allen maintains his mistakes, I can see the Bills going a long way.
You think so? What do you got, Jack?
I think that the Dolphins are actually a scarier team. I think that the Bills are shooting themselves in the foot constantly. I think Josh Allen hasn't gotten his mind straight yet this season. I feel like all that we've seen is Josh Allen back yet? Is he back yet? And he continues to let everybody down. He continues to those atrocious interceptions. The one that was thrown into the end zone, the second one, he just lofted that up, and he just said, let's see if anybody catches it. That they won that game because of that 95-yard punt return. That was the only thing that kept him in that game. And I think that Miami, they obviously had certain players like Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips out, but they also had somebody like Xavier Holland who was out, their star cornerback. And they also have Jalen Ramsey on the other side. They have an elite secondary, even without those 2 players. I think that their defense is enough to stop these AFC powerhouses, even though we have seen them get whooped by some teams like the Ravens. But I still think that the Dolphins are going to come back even stronger. I think they will beat that challenge of overcoming all of these injuries and questions of, is Tua just going to keep throwing interceptions like carelessly? I think as long as Tyreek Hill is on the field, the Dolphins are still in the game.
And it's worth remembering, by the way, and Stiggs, I don't know if you agree with me, but Stephon Diggs, for all of the praise that people give him, has really not looked good in the last 8 or so weeks. He's been pretty much totally silent. So while we're over here talking about this offensive weapon that the Bills have, which is Tyreek Hill, I feel like the lowest common denominator for the Bills, which we don't see. I'd say we see the lowest possible performance from the Bills at a rate that is higher than any of the elite teams in the entire NFL. We see it happen all the time. And I think we need to see Stephon Diggs be more consistent
So, like,
before we can believe that won't happen in the playoffs.
yeah, so like from what I saw, like most of the time Diggs was running, it would go straight and a comeback and catch the ball and go down. That's all I saw from him. I didn't see any deep balls, any posts or anything. I really just saw that.
Hmm.
And if he's gonna be that Stephon Diggs that they traded for from Minnesota when he came here from Minnesota,
Hmm.
he needs to be going on longer routes and going for touchdown balls. Because if you saw in 2021 and 2022, most of the time he was good because he was catching long touchdowns and making plays when he had more opportunities with the football, not just catching it and going down.
Well, I think it's worthy to remember, and I think it's the last point that we'll make. Josh Allen made more mistakes last night than the 2 interceptions. He does lead the lead in touchdowns, but he also missed the go ball touchdown to Diggs, and he missed the
the opening drive. It was right there.
Yeah, he missed
threw
the
an
opening drive.
interception.
Yeah, he's full of mistakes, and it causes me to have a little bit of fear about him. So that's where we'll end it for the weekend preview. I'm going to invite up Pete for our playoff preview.
Hello, I'm Peter Hardeveld, and playoff season for the NFL has already begun. We have a lot of great matchups today. First thing I would like to ask about is the Stafford trade. Who do you think has more of a chip on their shoulder or what to play for, Jared Goff or Matthew Stafford?
Yeah, so the NFL script writers really did a good job on this one. Rams, Lions, Stafford versus Goff. Who won the trade? I think that in this scenario, if Stafford wins this game, the whole debate on the Lions side, it's over. It's over. Like if Goff wins this game and he goes to the Super Bowl and they win a Super Bowl, okay, then you could say both sides got a Super Bowl out of it. But I think if Stafford wins this game and he kills this Lions momentum, it's clear to say that the Rams obviously won this trade. I mean, Stafford already got 1 Super Bowl out of the Rams after the trade. But I think that the Lions, they really might have sold themselves on this one. I mean, Stafford is playing better than Goff right now. And he's, 7 years older than him. This is crazy.
Mm-hmm. And how big do you think the effect of losing Sam Laporta likely for the playoffs is for the Lions?
It's massive. I mean, especially with these red zone touches, they do have David Montgomery in the backfield, and they also have Gibbs. They can run him in a versatile role. Whatever they are on the field, he can always run it in. But Sam Laporta is that real red zone threat where they fake a handoff and they go play action, and then Sam Laporta's wide open. We literally saw it yesterday. It could happen anytime, and now that they lost that, they really got to depend on these guys like Amon-Ra and Craig Reynolds. Like, some of these guys that they have in the backfield, like, they got to start relying on those guys heavily. And I think losing Sam Laporta is gonna play a big factor in this game.
Stiggs, how big do you think the return of C.J. Gardner-Johnson is going to be for the Lions?
It's gonna be huge because their defense. I mean, they're gonna have another guy in the secondary to lock down big targets, and Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp and even tight end Tyler Higbee. He's pretty good too. So yeah, it's gonna be pretty good for them to now have a little bit of healthier defense, and then you got Hutchinson up front chasing down Stafford, trying to get to him as fast as possible. And I think C.J. Gardner-Johnson will do a good job of locking down those two targets.
This Lions defense has been a bit lackluster recently. I think that's a huge boost for that team. Andrew, I would like to ask you, who do you think, or if you think, if the Lions were to win this game, are they real contenders for the Super Bowl?
100%. I think they're a young team everywhere. They're young, and I think it's just gonna reflect if they do lose, where like the next step is going to be. And I think in a few years we could see this team in the Super Bowl.
Who do you think's gonna win? Where do you stand?
I got the Lions.
I'm gonna go with the Rams.
Pete?
I agree. I'm going to go with the Rams and Karen
I'm
Williams.
gonna go with the Rams as well. I think Stafford's gonna show out.
The next game I'd like to talk about is the Dolphins and the Chiefs. Who do you think is going to play better in this one? Patrick Mahomes or Tyreek Hill, who's returning back to Arrowhead for the first time since the trade?
Well, we saw this matchup early in the year, obviously not Arrowhead, but in Germany, and I think that honestly, who's going to be more in control? If you're going to say who's going to be great, Mahomes is obviously in control of what he does. He's the quarterback. He's the guy running the offense. He's the captain. He makes his own decisions. So I think he's going to be greater because we've seen Mahomes clutch in the playoffs multiple times, and I think he's going to continue to do that. Tyreek, you have to rely on Tua, and as we saw last game of the year versus the Bills, he collapsed. I mean, he didn't threw interception to Taylor Rapp and the guy 47 in the beginning of the game. Two horrible passes, and I know the first one was to Tyreek Hill, and Tyreek Hill can't control that. So I think it's going to be Mahomes. Mahomes is going to be that guy, and Mahomes is going to lead this team to victory.
Mahomes has had a bit of a rocky season, especially with all the drops on offense. But Andrew, do you think that in the playoffs they'll kind of fix that? They've had a week to kind of rest. Do you think that they'll fix some of the problems and really look like the old Chiefs?
Yeah, I mean it's playoff season. We're gonna see new teams come out, different styles, and I think the Chiefs are gonna be one of them. I think the Chiefs are gonna come out full force. The Chiefs that we thought we were gonna see. I think Mahomes. This is gonna be a great game for him. That injured Dolphins defense. And yeah, I think the Chiefs got a good shot in this one.
Yeah, like, like you said, actually, that Dolphins team has been very banged up. Obviously, you can go Xavier Howard, who might come back, Van Ginkel as well. Those
Probably
edge
so.
rushers, Raheem Mostert, Jalen Waddle. Do you think that they have a shot at winning this game, even if some of those pieces are missing?
I'm going to side with the Dolphins on this one. I think that while we've seen a very, very promising season from the Chiefs cornerback Snead, I think Tyreek Hill is going to cook him. I think Tyreek Hill on his old stomping grounds, he's going to show up, and possible Jalen Waddle return. If that happens, it could be a dangerous game for Tua. I think Tua could go have some explosive 60-plus yard throws like we've seen all year. I think that Jalen Ramsey and Xavier Howard are enough to limit that, to snuff out that Chiefs offense. I think that Patrick Mahomes is barely holding on to what he has left, especially with Kelsey slowing down recently. I think that the Chiefs are barely holding on to what they've had over these past few years, and I think Jalen Ramsey and Xavier Howard are going to snuff it out.
Yeah, like you said, L'Jarius Sneed has been massive, completely massive for this Chiefs defense. He is actually battling an injury right now. Looks like he's probably going to play, but you never know come Sunday. Last game we'd like to talk about is Eagles-Bucks. Do you think this is the downfall for the Eagles? You think this could spell bad news for Sirianni as well?
As a biased Giants fan, 100% want the downfall for the Eagles. But yeah, 1-5 in their last 6, losing to the Cardinals with starters. It's questionable if they're gonna be any good. Their defense, lots of injuries, and they haven't even been good the entire season. They've always trusted that offense, and right now that offense is breaking down. And if Devonta Smith, DeAndre Swift, AJ Brown, Jalen Hurts, like if they're all out, like they all have injuries right now, and I could see a few of them being out for this Tampa game, and that could be the fate of the Eagles.
That Eagles secondary has not looked good all season. They might get Darius Slay back, but that's also a very big maybe. Do you think that this Eagles secondary will be able to lock up Mike Evans and Chris Godwin in this game, with Baker Mayfield as well looking decent?
Honestly, I think they could. If you have Darius Slay and you have Bradbury, I think 100% you could lock down Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. Evans, a little bit of a tougher one because I'm not entirely sure. Because Evans is a really good receiver. He was good with Brady, good with Winston, and he's even doing pretty good with Mayfield. But I do think that they have a decent shot with Slay. You have a pretty good shot of locking down that.
Yeah, both teams have not given a lot of confidence in these past few weeks. Obviously, the Bucks almost lost to the Panthers, who have been terrible all season, almost gave away their playoff spot. And the Eagles' offense has been banged up. A.J. Brown went down that last game. Jalen Hurts also got hurt in that one. Which offense do you think will prevail in this game?
I'm sensing a massive upset here. I think the Bucks are going to win this game, and it's not going to be by less than 10 points. I think that with the way Baker Mayfield has been playing all year, granted, 9-0 to the Panthers. Not very showcase of power on the Buccaneers offense. But Baker was playing through an injury the whole game. He was limping off every play. I think that Baker is, knowing his competitive spirit, he's going to go into this game guns blazing. He's going to absolutely go all out on this Eagles defense. Eagles banged up Eagles secondary. And I think he's going to find those guys, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Trey Palmer starting to evolve into that slot receiver role. I think he's gonna show out. And Rashad White as a backfield pass option, he's also been great this year. I think that Baker Mayfield has the weapons that Jalen Hurts might not have, with A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith possibly being out for this game. I think that Baker Mayfield's going to have the edge, and I think enough to have the playoff competitiveness, he's going to take over.
Yeah, I agree with you entirely. I think Baker Mayfield is going to be a huge part of this game. I think his competitive mentality, he really is a dog, and I think he's going to be a huge part of why the Bucs might win this game. And looks like it's going to do it for our show. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time on Knights Connect.